My name is Alara Whitmore. I'm 34 years old. And according to the police report filed by my own mother, I had been missing for 11 days. I found out by accident. It was a cold Thursday morning when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Unknown numbers. Voicemails piling up. A message from a former colleague. "Are you okay? Your picture is all over local groups." I thought it was a scam. Then I saw it. A missing person alert. My face. My full name. Last seen, unstable, possibly confused, may not be in control of her actions. Filed by my mother. I wasn't missing. I was at work. I had clocked in every single day. Paid my bills. Answered emails. Lived my normal, boring, stable life. But according to her statement, I had disappeared after showing signs of emotional distress and financial paranoia. Financial paranoia. That word hit harder than the missing report. Because this wasn't about worry. It was about money. And when I realized why she needed me declared missing, I understood something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand what my mother is like. From the outside, Marion Whitmore was the kind of woman people trusted instantly. She volunteered at community events, smiled at cashiers, remembered everyone's birthdays. She knew how to look warm without ever being soft. Inside our home, love was never a feeling. It was a contract. My father died when I was 22. After that, my mother didn't grieve like normal people. She reorganized. She tightened every screw. She turned our family into a one-woman kingdom where everything ran through her. My younger brother, Callum, played her game perfectly. He stayed close, agreed with her opinions, laughed at her jokes, and got rewarded with praise. I was the one she couldn't shape. I liked quiet. I liked distance. I liked being invisible. I moved to Manchester for work, built a life as a rail operations analyst, steady hours, clean routine, simple friendships. Nothing flashy. Nothing she could show off at a dinner party. And that's what she hated most. Because in my mother's world, if she can't control the story, she will rewrite it. Even if she has to erase you to do it. The police didn't arrest me. But they did show up. 2 officers walked into my office the next afternoon while I was reviewing signal compliance reports. Calm. Professional. Curious. "Miss Whitmore? We need to confirm your welfare." That phrase. Confirm your welfare. My colleagues stared as I stood up. I felt heat rise to my face, not from fear, but humiliation. "I'm not missing," I said quietly. "I'm right here." They exchanged a look. One of them lowered his voice. "Your mother filed a formal concern. She claims you've withdrawn large amounts of money, stopped responding to family, and may be experiencing delusions." Delusions. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 3 weeks. Because 3 weeks earlier, she had asked me for £60,000. Not as a loan. As a temporary family contribution. I said no. And apparently, that was the moment I vanished. The officers checked my ID. Asked a few standard questions. Verified my employment. My address. My mental state. I answered calmly. But inside, something cold was forming. Because filing a missing person report isn't just dramatic. It creates documentation. And documentation can be used. The real damage wasn't the police visit. It was what I found out later that evening. My mother hadn't just told the police I was missing. She had told the bank. I found out when my debit card declined at a grocery store. I thought it was a glitch. I checked my banking app. Account temporarily restricted pending welfare verification. My hands went cold. I stepped outside and called the bank immediately. After 20 minutes on hold, a cautious voice explained, "Miss Whitmore, we received a safeguarding alert from a direct family member. There are concerns about unusual withdrawals and possible coercion." Unusual withdrawals. I had transferred £40,000 into a separate investment account 2 weeks earlier. Money I'd been saving for 5 years. Money my mother didn't know the full amount of. Or at least, she wasn't supposed to. "Who authorized this restriction?" I asked. There was a pause. "A joint financial concern was submitted by your next of kin." Next of kin. My mother had positioned herself not as a worried parent, but as someone protecting my asset. protecting them from me. In that moment, everything clicked. She wasn't trying to find me. She was trying to establish instability. Because if she could make the bank question my judgment, the court would be next. And then the narrative wouldn't be missing. It would be mentally unfit. I didn't panic. That surprised even me. Instead, I requested copies of everything. Every form, every complaint, every recorded statement my mother had submitted. What arrived in my inbox an hour later made my stomach drop. She had claimed I was isolating from loved ones, that I had suddenly moved funds in secret, that I had become suspicious and distrustful of family intentions. The wording was careful, strategic, not dramatic enough to sound insane, just enough to suggest vulnerability. Then I saw the attachment. A scanned document. My signature on a financial access authorization form. Except I had never signed it. She had attached an old power of attorney draft from years ago. A document I refused to complete after my father died. She was recycling it, trying to imply prior consent. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from understanding. This wasn't emotional. This was calculated. And then I noticed something else. The timeline. She filed the missing report 3 days after my uncle's estate hearing. The same hearing where I was listed as the sole beneficiary. Suddenly, I wasn't missing. I was inconvenient. My Uncle Thomas wasn't wealthy in the way my mother admired. No mansions. No country clubs. But he owned something quieter. Land. 3 parcels near a future rail expansion corridor. I knew about them because I worked in transport planning. I had helped him understand the long-term value before he passed. What my mother didn't know, or pretended not to know, was that those parcels were about to triple in value once the public infrastructure announcement became official. The estate hearing confirmed it. Everything transferred to me. Not jointly. Not supervised. Fully. And 3 days later, I was missing. The timing wasn't grief. It was strategy. If I were declared unstable, if financial institutions flagged me, if court documentation suggested vulnerability, a temporary conservatorship could be requested until she stabilizes. And during that window, assets could be managed, liquidated, transferred. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen of my laptop that night. My mother didn't want to find me. She wanted legal access to what I had inherited. And she had already started building a paper trail. But what she didn't realize was something much bigger. Because I also had documentation. And unlike her story, mine was recorded on camera. The day my mother claimed I was last seen distressed and disoriented was a Sunday. According to her report, I had left her house in tears after rambling about conspiracies. There was only one problem. I hadn't been near her house in months. That Sunday, I was at Manchester Piccadilly Station. And I wasn't alone. Our rail division had a scheduled infrastructure inspection. I had signed in at 8:42 a.m. My access badge scanned at 3 separate checkpoints. My supervisor emailed me at 9:13 about a timetable adjustment. And more importantly, the station had CCTV coverage on every platform, including Platform 6, where I stood for 12 uninterrupted minutes discussing freight rerouting with a senior operations engineer. Calm, focused, sober. No tears. No hysteria. No disappearance. When I requested internal footage verification for personal legal reasons, my department's compliance officer didn't hesitate. They archived the clips. Timestamped. Authenticated. Because here's the thing about transport systems. They document everything. And if my mother wanted to claim I vanished, she picked the wrong city. The first official hearing wasn't dramatic. It was procedural. A safeguarding review requested by the bank, supported by my mother's concern statement. Small courtroom. Gray walls. Administrative judge. My mother sat across from me looking fragile. Pale blush. Minimal makeup. Hands folded like she was attending church. If you didn't know her, you'd believe her. Her solicitor spoke gently. Ms. Whitmore has shown signs of financial impulsivity and emotional withdrawal. We're simply requesting temporary oversight to ensure her well-being. Temporary oversight. Such soft words for control. When it was my turn, I didn't argue. I handed my solicitor a folder. Inside, employment verification, investment transfer documentation, Uncle Thomas's estate papers, bank transaction breakdown, and a USB drive. The judge glanced at it. "What's this?" My solicitor answered calmly. "Train station security footage from the exact day the petitioner claims our client was mentally unstable and missing." My mother's posture changed. Just slightly. The first crack. Because paper can be twisted. But timestamps don't lie. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the clerk connected the screen. No music. No drama. Just grainy station footage. Platform 6. 8:47 a.m. There I was. Standing upright. Calm. Reviewing printed schedules. Nodding as a colleague spoke. Checking my watch. Taking notes. No shaking hands. No confusion. No rambling about conspiracies. The timestamp ran continuously. 9:02 a.m. 9:11 a.m. 9:18 a.m. The judge leaned forward. "Counselor," he said slowly, eyes on my mother's solicitor, "this appears to directly contradict your timeline." My mother's lawyer shuffled papers. "Emotional instability can fluctuate, but disappearance cannot," the judge interrupted. The screen paused on a clear close-up of my face as I scanned my badge at the exit gate. Focused. Present. Entirely fine. Silence settled over the room. And for the first time since this began, my mother didn't look fragile. She looked cornered. But this wasn't the worst part for her. Because after the footage ended, my solicitor stood up again. "We also have documentation showing the petitioner contacted multiple financial institutions attempting to initiate asset review." That's when my mother finally looked at me. Not with concern. With calculation unraveling. My solicitor didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Your Honor, 3 days after the estate transfer, the petitioner contacted 2 banks and 1 property valuation firm requesting access clarification under the pretext of emergency oversight." The judge turned slowly toward my mother. "Is this accurate?" Her lips parted. "It was for her protection." "From what?" he asked calmly. Silence. The kind that strips performance bare. My solicitor continued. "We also have written correspondence from the petitioner referencing temporary management until she stabilizes." The timing aligns precisely with the inheritance notification. The judge removed his glasses. This court does not take lightly the misuse of safeguarding mechanisms for financial leverage. He paused. "Petition dismissed. Immediate removal of account restrictions. And I am recommending review for potential fraudulent representation." The gavel struck once. Sharp. Final. My mother didn't cry this time. She didn't look at me. She simply gathered her handbag and walked out like someone who had miscalculated the cost. Outside the courthouse, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. She tried to make me disappear. Instead, she documented her own intentions. And sometimes the most dangerous move a manipulator makes is leaving a paper trail.